let's do
Never.
it.
Oh, that's
Never.
fun. It's always looking, that's where it's trying to find reactions, because it's never the person who's talking.
I wish I knew if there was audio.
Well, give me a second.
Yeah. Oh, I guess that's true. At least
I think I got it.
the signal's good in here.
Thank you.
I think so. Nice work, Matt. Nice work.
We were almost there.
Oh,
We just had to go down.
So close.
Ready?
I think she's better.
I'm looking, yeah.
Even though I've never done it before, I'm not 100% sure if it looks right.
Looks like it.
Yep, we're
Yep.
good. We're go.
Okay.
All right, at this time, I'd like to start the June 15th, 2026 Planning Board Advisory Commission meeting. Can we please stand for a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I please get a roll call
Commission President Wood,
here?
Commission Member Baldwin,
Here.
Commission Member Mays.
Here.
Commission Member Plumley,
Here.
Commission Member West,
Here.
Commission Member Worthman.
Yes, here.
All present.
Adoption of minutes, were there any minutes to adopt? I didn't think there was. Sorry, I didn't look over it real quick because I didn't think I was gonna be here. Public comment at this time. I'd like to open it up, I guess I didn't do agenda. Any considerations for agenda tonight? Okay. This time I'd like to open it up to public comment. For anybody that has any questions that's not pertaining to the next meeting. Nothing? Okay. First on the agenda, old business, there's none. New business, second reading of amendments to Planning Commission rules and procedures.
So at the last meeting, I summarized two changes to the Plan Commission rules. One change pertains to the removal of members of the Plan Commission, consistent with new state law. Members serve at the pleasure of the member's appointing authority, and the office holder or board or committee that appointed a member of the Plan Commission can remove that member of the Plan Commission at their pleasure. When it comes to board appointments, the entire board has to be the exact same membership. If even one person on the board has changed, then they cannot remove a Plan Commission member without cause. So that was the first change. And then the second change was a change to the order in which we consider petitions during meetings or public hearings, to place the petitioner's presentation before the petitioner's presentation and the questions to the petitioner before the staff presentation and questions to staff. So now I would need a vote to adopt those rule changes.
This time I'd entertain a motion to adopt the rule changes.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Commission President Wood,
Yes.
Commission Member Baldwin,
Yes.
Commission Member Mays.
Yes.
Commission Member Plumley,
Yes.
Commission Member West,
Yes.
Commission Member Worthman.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is public hearing for adoption of the UDO. This time, if you'd like to go over that before I open it up for public comment.
Yes, so I took the comments and suggestions that we had from our workshop last month and made those changes to the language that I presented last month. In addition to those changes, I noticed a few other places where some changes might be prudent. So go over those very quickly. We talked about defining what open areas and open space areas and amenities refers to when talking about maintenance. And so I added a definition for amenities. And then in section V 1.87, 1.8.7 for improvement location permits, I'm suggesting a change to also require improvement location permit when there is a change in the primary use of the property, so that we can make sure we're keeping track of those, especially as it pertains to any housing that is being changed from not housing anymore, since that's something that the state wants us to keep track of. There's a change to the body language in section A, as well as the addition of a new section B2 there. I believe, to the list of exemptions for subdivisions, I had also added an exemption for subdivisions that involve the combining of two or more parcels into fewer number of parcels. Since those situations involve parcels that are typically already have the road laid out, they already have the utilities provided, and so there's less of a concern when it comes to combining lots than there is from separating them. And then the last set of changes that weren't in the last, that you didn't see last month were, I realized that I had to go through the volumes for the agricultural and 3 residential districts to remove the type 3 and adjust. There's like some tables in there that specify whether type 1, type 2, type 3 are allowed in those districts. So I had to go back and make those edits to those as well. But aside from those changes I just described, this and the ones that we workshopped, that's what's presented there in Exhibit A. And then Exhibit B is just the same stuff, just in context. So you can see what has changed, what's being deleted, et cetera.
This time I'd like to open it up for public comment.
Kind of hard to know what you're talking about when I don't have a copy of anything that you're
Yeah.
talking about.
I know.
You want my copy? I have a printed copy of the amendments. I don't have the whole UDO, but I have a printed copy of the amendments, you just have to forgive my
No.
notes.
And the hard part is too, a lot of this, it kind of ran through fast because it was all discussed at the last meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's also a copy available on the town's website.
yeah, it's attached. While they're reviewing, would you mind if I ask a question?
Yeah.
One of the things I had noted to ask, I recognized everything that was in there with the exception. I know we had a whole conversation around building materials. I don't remember specifically, and forgive me, it may be me, the conversation that designated the percent of masonry. I thought that.
Thank you. That's right. I forgot to mention that in those updates. So, between the last meeting and this meeting, there were 2 building permit applications that were submitted. One in Brookside Acres, one outside of any of the existing subdivisions, where in both cases, they submitted an application that didn't meet that 50% requirement. We've talked about at the Plan Commission previously that 50% is really quite high and higher than most other communities. And that's certainly the kind of regulation that I think the state is kind of targeting when they wrote and passed that bill earlier this year. So we didn't have a discussion on the percentage. 20 is a pretty standard level, but we can talk about what that number should be if you are opposed to 20, if you think it should be higher or lower. But 20, I felt like was a good place to kind of start as a good baseline. And again, we can revisit, I think we will have to revisit the full discussion of those standards when we have that public hearing on all of the housing regulations that's required by the state. But so this is, you can kind of think of this as kind of a temporary patch for this ordinance.
To get us legal stabilized and.
Well, I guess where my question, if just thinking, and maybe I missed it because I'm still pretty new to this. So there are some housing types that are allowed, like if I remember correctly, like take for example, ag. I think ag allows modular homes, right?
Yes.
Modular homes and mobile homes typically do not come with any masonry. In fact, it's impractical to put masonry
Yes.
on it. I know because I have a modular that's 100% brick and my mother-in-law was nuts when she did it. But having said that, how do we then allow a housing type in an area that does not allow that can't be built to meet the requirement?
And
how do we make a requirement people cannot meet?
And that's exactly why we want to revise this and change this. Neither of the applications were for modular homes, so that particular situation hasn't yet come up. That's a very good point and something that is exactly at the heart of why that standard is too strict. Now, I would say that a person in that situation likely has a person in a modular home who's prevented or concerned about installing masonry on that home. That situation might have a better chance of succeeding on a variance of development standards, simply because our ordinance allows those to be granted when you have a practical difficulty. It's not just an undue hardship situation. It's if meeting the standard is possible but would be impractical, you might also be able to get a variance for that.
If meeting the standard is possible and impractical, is it fair to ask someone to pay to apply for?
I would say no, and that's why we would want to change that standard but we didn't have the time to go through a full
Gotcha.
discussion
Okay,
of
I just
that.
wanted to make sure before we changed it to 20, that 20 made sense to us.
Well, and I think, and I've said this before, I said this when we discussed it last time. I think our whole residential section needs completely revamped
Yeah.
from beginning to end. A lot of it doesn't make sense. A prime example that I've said from the beginning is the neighborhoods that got built across from school, Government Farms, and all that. They don't even meet their R1 district, and they don't even meet the R1 requirements. So every time somebody wants to do something in that neighborhood, they gotta have a variance.
Well, that was another thing. I don't know about Brookside, but I know the initial phase of Montgomery Farms, they had a covenant where they had to have a certain percentage of masonry on the frontage. So in a situation like that, there may be other concerns that, like if you have a development that has a certain aesthetic requirement, you're signing on to that when you choose to build in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I mean, they can go above and beyond
Yeah, that's
based on
what
the
it
builder
does.
and the HOA.
And that's what we did with the BZA when we met. We set a number scale.
Right, exactly. There's a table in the standards that new construction is required to meet. And there's a certain number of points you can earn from doing things in that table. And that was one of the things that was discussed at that BZA meeting concerning Montgomery Farms, was lowering that required number of points.
But we
Because
didn't.
15 points on that table it's not that you can't do it, it's that it would be expensive to do so. And if we're trying to build more housing at a reasonable cost, requiring some people to do things that are really expensive doesn't make a lot of sense. That counters that.
Well, I mean,
objective.
whether it's expensive or not, maybe it's just not what they want.
And exactly.
But no, I said from the beginning, I greatly agree with, like, I mean, right now, just temporarily, we're going in the right direction by going from 50 to 20, just, and getting the state stuff out of the way. But I've said from the beginning, I think saying that you have to have a certain amount of masonry in the front, and this is my opinion, is biased to architectural design at the time. I think it needs to be changed and worded in a way that it's more, you have to have a certain percentage of approved architectural designs. Basically, you can't just have a full vinyl home. But there's tons of things you can do, from shakers to board and batten to,
Right, right.
Yeah,
Or do you want a log home?
I'll say that.
yeah, there's a lot of things besides just stone or masonry that look amazing. You can look at, there's homes here in town that's been remodeled that look amazing. So I think it needs to be more open to being able to keep up with the times on whatever the end look is.
In fairness, my bias or agenda, for lack of any better term, is simply this: I just want to be fair. When we put people in a position where they have to apply for a variance for something that we presume they're gonna get a variance for, then we shouldn't be charging them to apply for a variance. And then secondly, there's always an opportunity there for one person to get a variance and another person doesn't get a variance. And then there's reason to describe why. And, you know, it just seems to me, in the interest of dealing fairly, if we know that's where we're going, let's just get there.
I forgot we're still in public comment, or,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Sorry.
sorry, my apologies.
so we need to leave it up to them.
We're enjoying the conversation.
Well, we can continue it, I just have to close the.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll be
so-
quiet, I'm
Close
sorry.
Go
and
ahead.
open.
Will the UDO apply to existing houses, say just in town? Say a house burns down.
If you were to rebuild,
House
yes,
burns down and you gotta rebuild the house.
correct,
Is the UDO gonna apply to that?
yes.
Yes.
But,
So you have to get a variance
But
to
pretty
do a
much-
historical restoration?
so pretty much everything we're doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is less than what we required before. So,
The changes we're making
Yeah.
today, yes.
yeah, so everything we're doing is actually making it easier than what our requirements were before. A problem that went on well before the people on this board were on here, was a lot of these rules were already set in place and they were extremely strict, but it was a handshake and agreements. So, oh yeah, don't worry about it, Mr. So-and-so, and Mr. John, it don't matter. And we're trying to get away from that. Well, by trying to get away from that, we're noticing that our rules are so strict that if we adhere to them, we're locking a lot of people out.
Mhm.
So we're going through slowly, actually making things easier on residents, not harder at this point, but yet being able to hold everybody to the same standard.
We do some restoration work, and lately we've done several fire jobs where the house has been totaled.
Yeah,
And so, you know, I appreciate the fact that regulations keep you from building too close to the street because it doesn't meet the setback requirement. But if you're in a existing part in town where that's the way all the houses are
So,
along the
in
street,
those-
then you gotta get a
in
variance.
those times, you would have to get a variance, but usually it's always gonna be seen through.
So as we talk to our clients, I'm just trying to be able to intelligently talk to our clients to say, well, in this situation, this is how they have told us we need to handle that. You need to get a variance, or you don't need, or you can do this, or you can't do that, or.
You would need,
So I don't look like a fool when I'm talking to somebody, or I waste everybody's time saying, oh yeah, we'll just build it back like it was.
yeah,
Well, that may not be realistic.
you would need a variance, and
It would depend on which standard we're talking about. So for example, all of the setback standards are written in a way that says, it's a 25-foot setback or the average of all the other houses on the block.
Okay.
So like if your house is already there and it's only 10 feet from the sidewalk and all of your neighbors are also 10 feet, if you wanted to rebuild, if you needed to rebuild your house, you could build it at 10 feet off the sidewalk. That would be fine because everyone else on the block
So
is
they don't need a
there as well.
variance for that.
Right. But, and similarly, if you had a house that was below the minimum dwelling size, and that was destroyed and you needed to rebuild it, you would be allowed to rebuild a house that was that same size. You wouldn't have to make your house bigger. But standards like material standards, architectural standards, those would apply to a house. You would now have to meet those standards. Things like a parking requirement or something like that, those you would be required to meet. So there's some leeway and then some, no, we want you to meet the new standards.
But if somebody wanted to add on to the front of their house and the existing house didn't have any masonry on it, because there's a lot of, wood framed, all siding houses, you wouldn't wanna have to put brick on the addition when there wasn't any, it'd be a
Yeah,
totally different architectural style, it look pretty silly to have, you know what I'm saying?
I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that applies unless you're redoing all the siding on the house. Then at that point, when you're redoing the whole exterior wrap of the home.
Yeah, there's some, I'd have to see specifically what the ordinance says around when new standards would apply when you're doing things like additions or renovations. Because it's not a cut and dry kind of thing.
I'm giving you things to think about as you're trying to.
Yeah,
Because you're saying we need to totally rethink this whole thing and
yeah,
there's, in my business, I've been doing this for 50 years. I still get something pops up that I haven't really thought about or had to address before. And when you try to do what you're doing, there's just a whole lot of situations that come up that you don't want to put yourself in a position or a rabbit hole where where you have to go back and undo something again because you didn't think
Yeah.
about that. But once,
that's what
when
we're
you're
trying to-
writing something that applies to the whole town, that gets pretty difficult.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to get out now because our ordinances are so strict, we're in a pickle with anytime anybody tries to do anything, so.
I would also, I don't know how you do this, cause I haven't been involved in your end of it.
Mhm.
But once you establish those rules and you establish them for the whole town and a subdivision, then people get upset sometimes when you start changing things. I assume that's kind of where we're at here with this. You start out doing this and the subdivision was fine, but now it's not fine, or I remodeled my old house and now I'm gonna remodel my new house and I didn't have a problem then, but I got a problem now, so, people are with change when you start
Oh, yeah.
changing things, so the less you have to do that, I would think once you've adopted something and people get used
Yeah.
to it, you don't have as many problems. But when
Yeah.
you're trying to do something new, different, get the rules established,
Yeah,
that's the difficult part.
like I said, I'm hoping this makes it easier on everybody once it's all.
Well, for us, we just want to know where we're at, and you make plans for how you're going to do things, and then you're not expecting things to change. You lay out your subdivision, you lay out your style of houses, this is what we're doing, and then hopefully in the middle of doing your subdivision, that doesn't change because you already got your plans, you already got, what you're selling and all that kind of stuff, so it makes it kind of hard when you change the style of your subdivision or sizes of houses when you already have the lots laid out and
Oh,
all
yeah.
that kind of stuff. So I think that's where you get pushback, is when you, obviously change is the hardest thing to do. Nobody likes change. So from where I sit, I just want to know what the rules are. So when I talk to clients, I'm not selling them or trying to go down the wrong rabbit hole, trying to do something and then you get into it and it's Well, I guess we can't do that after all.
95% of the rules have not changed. They're the same that they've been online for years.
And don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
I know I got old,
Yeah.
I'm old and I got gray hair, but change is a good thing.
Yeah,
And there's always gonna be change. We just wanna keep up with it.
yeah. I mean, like I said, like the break, you know, a lot of things what we've ran into, it's just, people are, just like I said, people came to us and been like, well, that's not, you know, what we wanna build is a beautiful home and it doesn't meet your standards because you restricting it so much to a certain kind of architectural design or, so there's a lot of things like that. There's a lot more looking into like, what does an R1 and R2 and R3 neighborhood look like? Right now, they don't all work the way they should per se. So, that's more for future use, right? Like someone's coming here and build an R1 neighborhood. That helps lay that out better for them than what it is right now. It's like we had the issues over here in Montgomery Farms and stuff like that. So hopefully try to fix a lot of this going in the future, knowing that sooner or later there probably will be more development. So
30 years ago, I never had somebody come to me and say, I want you to build me a barn dominium. What was that?
they'll,
You know, well, that's a different style of building that we didn't do. And that I wouldn't do in my subdivision, I guarantee you that. I wouldn't build.
No, I think they should be too, but they're not allowed right now.
yeah, that, like she said, that's a prime example right now.
Yep.
According to our standards, you can't build a barn dominium.
Build one.
That'll be something that'll probably be looked at to get changed, right?
So that's what I'm saying, there's just changes inevitable and
Right.
we're just trying to figure out how to make it all work. It's the same thing you guys are doing.
This time, is there any other questions? All right, I'd like to close the public comment and, or the public hearing and resume the planning board meeting. So at this point, we need to vote on this, correct?
Yeah, unless, if there's any more discussion, but yes.
Anybody have anything else?
No, I just wanted to clarify the difference between, like, say repair. We'll just use some examples in town, if you don't mind, that would be problematic. Say the Blue Church, right, which needs structural repair. I don't know if you'd necessarily call it a total loss type scenario.
Yeah,
And then you look at something that's like, say, maybe the burned out building on Main Street, right, which is probably a total loss and needs,
yeah,
completely redone. The other thing to consider is you don't want standards, like the repair obviously would be covered, I think, under the current,
mm-hmm,
but you don't want to create a standard that is so much more difficult that you have buildings that just sit in the disrepair because
people don't want to spend
they
the money.
can't invest the money or they aren't in a position to do that because
No, I
they're
agree.
insured or, so, I don't know, I just, I do see, I understand there's a delicate balance between obviously not wanting to open the door to like a bunch of vinyl villages,
Yeah,
but also keeping in mind that like, we shouldn't put people through extra hoops if we know that we're going to go that way anyway.
yeah. And a lot of that's, when, like I said, with myself, is dividing out more of our residential districts, making it a more clear cut, what's the difference in them. Yeah, I do agree with all that. The church is a weird one because you brought that one up, because I think if you were to do something like that, you could probably say for historic accuracy, you could bring it back to certain requirements, get a variance based on historical.
Possibly. No one will touch it structurally.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a whole other issue. I'm just saying as an
Yeah.
example.
I would say also it's different because even though the property it's on might be in a residential zone, the ordinance does give the administrator, the building inspector, the discretion to apply the standards of, if you have a non-conforming use in a zoning district, the building inspector or the planning administrator can apply the standards for the district that use is actually allowed in to that property.
Yeah,
So I don't recall if church is listed
well,
in
right now that,
R1 or
that
R2,
church
but
is listed as a home.
Yeah, it's gonna be an Airbnb.
So that's all, it's considered a home or rental.
okay, see ya, I gotcha.
It just looks like a church, but they wanted to keep the, if anything ever happens, they were wanting to keep the historical look of it, so that's why I mentioned that.
Yeah, I think that would be,
Now, without going all the way down that road,
I think a variance would be a likely possibility in that situation.
I think the 20% is heading in the right track. I know it's not, maybe not what everybody wants to see right now, but we have to do something now for state requirements, because that is part of state requirements, isn't it? Yeah. And then like I said, I do think this is something we need to focus on in the near future for meetings, and I think it's gonna take a while to go through,
Yeah.
unfortunately, because there's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Before it's ever adopted. So this just gets us through the state part until we can take the time to really go through it and come up with something solid to adopt.
And fads are ever changing.
Yes. So we need to word it so it is acceptable for, like, kind of try to future-proof it.
This might be something to explain to everybody why we're doing this, like what the UDO is.
Yeah, do you wanna
Like,
explain that?
like why we're voting on this now? Kind of like your questions, like
Yeah.
why? So it might be like
Yeah,
to
so,
explain why.
Thank you.
this public hearing is for the readoption of the Unified Development Ordinance of the Town of LaPel. So this ordinance was originally adopted in 2015, but due to a series of bills, but most notably House Enrolled Act 1001, LaPel is required and other municipalities across the state of Indiana are required to revisit our zoning ordinances and have a public hearing and discuss making changes to those zoning ordinances with a view towards making it easier, less expensive to produce more housing. And so in addition to that, there's a whole host of other changes that we're being required to make, including changes to allowed uses in commercial and industrial districts, changes, the rule change that we just voted on before with the commission membership, all sorts of changes like that. And so many of these requirements and these provisions come into effect July 1st. And so we want to make sure that we're ahead of those changes before the month of July. So that we're all set and we don't have any lapses or gaps where we're not in compliance or something's confusing like that when the state requirements kick in.
Does that make sense? We're basically kind of forced to expedite a little bit of this just to be
I
state.
know the state legislature passed 1001, but
Yeah,
their catchphrase is affordable housing.
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah, I know what's going on. I'm just trying to figure out what all the rules are and how I fit into, how our business fits into compliance. But I appreciate that. Some of that is trying to figure out how to remodel existing buildings into housing.
Mm-hmm.
Take old buildings in the inner city where, some of that's been sacred over the years, that we're not gonna allow housing but sometimes that's more affordable to rehab something for housing than it is to knock it down. And that was part of the discussion at one point. I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was part of it, the legislative part of it.
Yeah, yep. That was one of the things that was in the bill.
All right, at this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the UDO?
It would be a motion to, certify a favorable recommendation.
Oh,
to
'cause-
town
yeah,
council.
because the council has to do it.
Council
Sorry,
has to do
my
it.
bad. This time, I'd entertain a motion to send a favorable recommendation of the UDO to town council.
A second.
Oh, you
No,
gotta
you
make
have to do.
Oh,
it. I didn't make my.
I was supposed to say it.
Not president
I just, I just,
I'll make that motion.
I just entertained one.
I second.
It's looking right at you.
Well, I figured you were gonna do it, so.
Commission President Wood,
Yes.
Commission Member Baldwin,
Yes.
Commission Member Mace.
Yes.
Commission Member Plumley,
Yeah.
Commission Member West,
Yes.
Commission Member Workman.
Yes.
Planning commission discussion. We got a planning administrator report.
Yes. So, in this report, I wanted to provide updates on, a few cases, that were administrative. So I've had two, use classification requests. The current ordinance, doesn't have a process spelled out. So in approaching these two classifications I received, I used the process that described in the changes that you all just gave a favorable recommendation to. So case number one was the owners of the Lapel Vet Clinic that's like out on 32. They want to move into the former clinic at the north end of Main Street there.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Oh, I did not know
The
that.
doctor's office, you mean?
Yeah,
After Liz, yeah.
and vet clinic is not an allowed use anywhere in our ordinance. So they needed a use classification for that. I approved that, finding that a veterinary clinic is substantially similar to a medical clinic.
Mm-hmm.
So that one was approved. And then Mr. Hartzell, who's come to a couple of plan commission meetings, also sent in a use classification request for his
Moving company.
moving company. I found that, so he did buy that property, the Lee Farms property, and he planned to use the existing sheds and garage and barn and such as storage for parking the trucks, the moving equipment, et cetera. I found that to be substantially similar to a agricultural products terminal, which is an allowed use in the agricultural district. So I approved that use classification. And then lastly, last week, we had a plat that I had a plat that was submitted to combine two lots in the Brookside Acres subdivision. And that plat is currently in review per the existing plat process, and I'm hoping with this new process and the new exceptions that this plat can be approved shortly. BZA case updates, there are none. Development updates, there are none. Administrative matters, this was in the last month's report, but just reiterating again that our current plan is to have the required public hearing for all of the housing regulations at next month's meeting, Plan Commission meeting. And we are going to have a sort of the plan for that is I have my staff report is mostly complete. It's broken up into sections based on all the different things that they wanted to talk about. So the plan is I will present the part or I will present it section by section, and we'll have public comment between the sections, and you'll have discussion, and you'll take votes to decide what action should be taken section by section instead of going through the whole thing and doing it all at the end. So that's kind of the plan for next month. And that concludes the planning department report.
Next on the agenda is code enforcement case updates. Do we have any?
We've prepared letters. I think we have 5 letters that Dennis Nail reviewed.
We can't hear you, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
You guys can't hear me?
No,
the
it's
air.
this.
Yeah.
I can try to be a little louder for it. We have 5 complaints, based on all the reviews that we have. You guys can hear me?
Yeah.
5 complaints drafted, got Dennis's signature on all of them since he's our inspector. We just required him to sign off on them. They will be sent over to the court, and so we'll have those proceedings ongoing. The goal is hopefully we don't have ordinance violations, so we don't have to go to court weekly, but if they continue, and we are in prime season right now, we'll go weekly, and I'll give you guys updates on what new houses we have. I don't think we've received haven't gotten to the lawsuit stage of any new complaints, but of course we have the 45-day process in which it comes to me at that point. Of those 5 complaints, one of them may be brought into compliance prior to us filing it, so that's fantastic. I think that covers everything as far as complaints. That was us wrapping up all of the open complaints and all the fines that have been accrued up to this point and getting them to this process. So there are no other outstanding ones that need to go to court. There may be some that are open, but we haven't passed that 45-day window of them needing to go to court.
So these are all the old ones that would need to, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Were you sending those to us?
You weren't here at the last meeting, we had a handout, so,
Oh, I did not get that.
no, you did not.
Can you get that to me?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
I have a couple. What is the standard for a motorhome to be parked in front of a residence that's running electricity from the residence to the motorhome? And that appears to be their main residence.
Not supposed to.
Talking right there on the corner?
Yep.
Yeah.
I rolled through there at about midnight to see a resident standing in their motorhome, in their
He was just packing for the holiday weekend.
nightly attire, let's just say. No.
We have
that's not.
visited that before because people that want to build and put a camper on their lot to watch
Exactly,
we say no.
right,
So
right.
that should be enforced.
And not to mention the condition in which that property is in with the upgrown weeds and mosquito issue that we have going on.
Yeah,
And that is the very first sign that our outside folks get to see when they roll into town at a main stop sign.
No, yeah, you can't leave that as a permanent residence.
No.
So we need
Correct,
we need
yeah.
Dennis to.
so the way that it works right now, it's a complaint-driven system, so we don't, the town doesn't pay Dennis to go out and search for all these
So you gotta
properties.
file a complaint.
If the complaint has been filed, then, I mean, we really cleaned up the system, then the 45-day counter has started for us taking them to court. I mean, in a perfect world, the second they get the first letter, they bring it into compliance, so they'll fix up the yard, they'll remove the RV or camper or whatever it is, but so long as there's a complaint, then that process has been started.
I think it's legally allowed to be there, just not your residence.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. My second question would be, in the past, the landlord that owns the building that has been a mechanic's shop for very many years.
Oh, the old Shell station?
Yeah,
Herschel's.
I noticed that there's some, interest stewing in that building. But my concern is with the fact that that building does not have any heat. It does not have any air conditioning. So at what point does that building not meet standard code to where that landlord can continue to rent that building out for a business? And there's such, based on our zoning for that spot, there's such a minuscule amount of businesses that would be able to
Use it.
qualify to use it.
Mhm.
So at what point do we need to review, does this building meets code? And be very specific with the landlord as to what can go in there to prevent what happened with the last scenario.
Yeah, I definitely, I mean, there are standards that they have to meet both through our code and, I mean, there are state requirements, of course, that even supersede us, nothing we can do about that. What they are specifically to HVAC systems, I'm not sure. I can look into what they are and have a report I can send out to you on that. But if there is any issues as far as violations for us, of course, I mean, a complaint sent in and we can reach out, send letters if we have a good faith basis to believe that they are not in compliance with whatever, if they have tenants coming in or whatever, we can send a letter for sure, a legal letter, the equivalent of a cease and desist kind of thing.
Right.
I would add to that also that, if they get a tenant, or if the owner themselves wants to, make any repairs or renovations to the building, that require a permit, then they will have to come into compliance with the building code and with our standards, because, that, once you need a permit, that means that Dennis is going out there and he's gonna inspect the building and, he can't issue a certificate of occupancy to a building that
Yeah.
doesn't meet the building code.
I was gonna say, it should be a lot like if you rented out a strip of the mall, then you get an empty shell, but you still have to finish it out and meet code
Right.
Yeah.
requirements.
Right.
Even though the owner is just providing a rough shell, the occupant still has to finish it out.
Yeah, it depends on the terms and commercial lease.
Correct.
William, let me ask you, are we waiting, like, these things we're talking about, these codes, these are ordinances, right? These are
Yeah.
not so much part of like the UDO, which is like zoning and building standards. These are more like compliance type.
As far as the ordinance violations you're
Yeah,
talking about, yeah, those,
so we couldn't make any changes to ordinances until after the codification, right?
no, we can 100% make changes prior to, the codification is just gonna make it easier for
To
us.
enforce.
I know there's been a little bit of maybe inaccurate information about that. Just because there isn't codification of our ordinances, they are still laws, they still have to be followed, and we still have enforcement authority. That's why they're ordinances rather than a resolution. So if there are violations to ordinances that have been passed, then yeah, we can still, to the full extent of the law, take them to court and whatever, based on the language of the ordinance, that when it was passed, any fines or fees appropriate. And then, I mean, there are some ordinances that we have, like health code issues that we have a lot of power granted to us by the state to go in and fix problems proactively. So,
So is anyone open to having a conversation around the ordinances pertaining to, for lack of a better term, aesthetics? I mean, I'm just gonna be direct. One of my pet peeves is that our Main Street does not represent us well, but I'm told that our ordinances only are enforceable to a structural level. and it feels like there should be some requirement to have a better presentation.
Is ordinances, that's
Part of
approved, no, I thought ordinances like that were approved by the.
Town.
Well, that's my
Yeah,
question,
we
like,
just
Yes, so it would go to the town council for ordinances, but you can 100% have recommendations to them.
Yeah,
I
it
know
would
that
just be a recommendation, but I mean, we can have the discussion if that's what you wanna do.
I mean, am I the only person that feels
You're
like that's
Not at all.
I
needed?
agree.
Yeah, I think we all.
I just feel like it doesn't market our town well. And, you know, I understand why we're discussing this from a punitive approach, because we've reached the point where that's required. I'm open, Jenny, if we can't do it in June, but if, when we meet in July, if we wanna talk about ways that we can maybe incentivize people, if there's some way we can come up with a way to incentivize people to clean up their properties beyond what the ordinance requires, just for the sake of like trying to make our town look better, but some of it's rough. Like, we've got active businesses that look like they're boarded up. We've got boarded up, burned out houses. We've got houses with neatly stacked trash all over I mean, that's not how, in our commercial district,
Especially if we're trying to move towards a beautifying Main Street movement.
yeah.
Like, if we can start small and make small improvements, it would be a good move, I feel like.
I'd rather find ways to encourage and come alongside people to get them to make those concessions or those efforts on their own. But understanding that if they're not willing to do that, we may need to discuss putting something in place where we can actually enforce that down the road. If we ended up having to go there, I think makes sense. And I'm not saying that to offend anyone. I understand everyone's situation is different. To every one of those people, if there's something I can do to help, reach out to me. I will see what I can do. If I can't help you, I'll look for resources for you.
I'm fine putting that on the topic for,
Future meeting?
for future meeting, yes.
Yeah, staff could, discuss options and best practices
I
and
think,
report back.
I think I think that will come up and will be, I think, naturally part of the discussion around,
Housing.
the architectural standards that we'll be talking about and,
talks about beautification.
and
Yeah.
Streets, the sidewalks.
And I mean, that conversation will be focused mostly on housing, but but there's no reason that the stuff we're talking about with housing can't be then applied to commercial properties, down the road.
But these conversations that we're talking about refer more to new construction or additions, right? Not so much to existing properties that may be in disrepair.
That's true.
But we're gonna venture.
But we're gonna
into it,
look at all of it,
Especially-
so.
Especially you. It's gonna venture.
Every time my husband get on that lawn. It's coming.
I'll add to that point, though, a lot of the trash and like the beautification stuff, a lot of it probably already falls under our public nuisance, section. And so if there, you see a problem, call in, state the problem, then of course Dennis will go out there and,
How
Really
long
good.
for vehicles setting out?
That's what I was just getting ready to ask. Where are we with vehicles with no plates
you know,
on Pendleton
Or if it
Avenue?
has to be.
If they're, and that's a state regulation. If they can't move, if they look like they're abandoned, we can remove cars. That's state, that's a state regulation.
So
Yeah, we can
so
have
we
that.
just have to say where and.
What about if they're on the street?
No, no,
Park.
And that-
no. This is the fee of 8th Street and Pendleton Avenue. There's an RV and like 3 vehicles and
we have
chaos.
so there's state level, but we also have a inoperable vehicles ordinance. So if they're not plated, if they're on cinder blocks,
Or 2 years old of the
So is this
plate,
gonna be
or-
a scenario where we can't
I know.
enforce it because
I have
of
a sticker, I just haven't
condemnation
put it on yet.
again, or?
We did have one
Flat
recently
tires.
and, Chief went out right away and resolved it.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the issue is we don't get the complaint.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
No, people talk about it, but nobody actually files it.
But isn't that I think that's a law enforcement thing to ticket it, isn't it? They can
Yeah.
ticket it without a complaint.
They
They
can
can.
ticket it without a complaint.
But it never happened.
It never
Okay,
happened.
okay, well,
We've,
that's fine.
we've touched that in
we
many
have.
years.
Yes, we have.
That's a whole nother
Come on,
Okay, that's.
we need him sitting here to tell them what they need to do.
Whole whole nother issue.
Yeah,
So I wonder, would it be worthwhile to maybe put out a communication warning the community, not so much warning, but just saying, hey, effort this summer, let's try to take a look at our properties and see if there's anything we can do, quick and easy to, make it look a little better. Kind of give people a heads up so that it doesn't just turn into a flurry of letters and a flurry of complaints and, I just don't
and
feel like we're
backlash,
picking on
because
them.
you're,
Yeah.
you're going to get that from certain people that
Right, right.
maybe the husband passed away, maybe.
Exactly, and maybe
And I
if we
can't do
take this
that,
soft
or-
rollout and then we say, let us know if you are struggling with this, we'll see if we can connect you with people in the community that wanna volunteer. We'll see if we can connect you with resources or grants or whatever.
If, and it sounds like when we do send out that letter, we do have to be careful from a legal standpoint.
Mhm.
'Cause it-
That you're not-
It can't be a letter that says, oh, we know we haven't been enforcing this law for the last 10 years. We're gonna start enforcing it now, and you're on the wrong side of it.
Correct.
That is a legal defense. I mean, if push comes to shove, we definitely don't want that to be the case, so. whenever
Right.
we work on that letter, I'll make sure to keep in touch. And we'll make sure it's pretty.
Just write it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, at this time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting, with the next meeting being July 9th.
Oh, did you have more questions?
Oh, wait.
Oh, sorry.
So,
I'm ready to close the meeting.
all in favor?
Gordon Bolt.
Can we get someone second?
No, we need a second.
I'll second it.
All
Thank you,
in favor?
Justin.
Aye.
Before everybody leaves, I need signatures on resolution, change the rules.
From all of us.
Yeah.
I did tell you.